There are moments that become a point of reference. Before and after. Everything that came before feels like a dream. Everything that happened after is never forgotten. For Lu Yi, that moment was the day of ascension. The sky above Mount Tiansheng was a deep violet shade, the kind that only appears when the heavens open for a cultivator of the highest rank. The clouds parted. Spiritual energy rose in a pillar of light straight to the zenith. The stands were packed. Thousands of cultivators from across the continent had come to witness a historic event. For the first time in 3,000 years, a mortal was reaching the rank of Heavenly Lord. His name was Lu Yi. He stood at the center of the ceremonial circle in white robes embroidered with golden dragons. Before him, 8 women arranged in a semicircle. 8 disciples. 8 women he had lifted from the dirt and raised to the heights. He had saved each of them in his time. He had given a part of himself to each, his time, his energy, his knowledge. He looked at their faces and smiled. He did not see what lay behind their smiles. The first blow came from behind, and that was symbolic. The one who struck first was his oldest disciple, the one he had trusted more than all the others. The blade entered between his shoulder blades. Lu Yi did not fall right away. He stood and watched as the remaining 7 also drew their weapons, slowly, without haste, like people who had long since made a decision and were now simply carrying out what had been planned. There was no anger in his mind, only a question. Why? There was no answer. Only 8 pairs of eyes, and in each pair something resembling relief, as if they had been carrying a heavy burden for a long time and had finally set it down. He fell. The sky above the mountain darkened, the violet light curled and went out like a blown candle. Thousands of witnesses froze in speechless horror. No one moved, no one managed to intervene, or no one wanted to. Lu Yi died slowly. A cultivator of his level could not die quickly, even from 8 blades at once. He lay there and looked up at the darkening sky. He heard 8 pairs of footsteps walking away. Not one of them looked back. The last thing he felt was not the pain of his wounds. A different kind of pain. The kind that has no name in human language. The kind that remains when everything you believed in turns out to be a lie. And then, darkness. And a voice from the darkness. Lu Yi, Heavenly Lord of 9 lives. You have lived 8. 1 remains. What will you do with it? He opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was wooden, rough planks, gaps through which a faint morning light seeped. Not a ceremonial hall. An ordinary room in an ordinary roadside inn. Lu Yi looked at his hands. Young. Without scars. Without the calluses from years of training. Without that network of fine lines that centuries of cultivation leave on the skin. He walked to the mirror. Cloudy, copper, giving a blurred reflection. He looked at himself. 17 years old. He was 17 again. Lu Yi stood before the mirror for a long time. Outside, a small town was waking up. Voices. The creak of carts. A rooster's crow. An ordinary morning. But for him this morning was the starting point of a new life. The 9th. The last. He remembered everything. That was the main thing. The rebirth had preserved his memory. All of it. Down to the last second. Every face. Every word. Every betrayal. 8 blades in the back. The old him had been kind. Too kind. He saw the best in people and believed that best could be cultivated. He gathered the broken and made them strong. He gave, without counting, without asking anything in return. Now he had knowledge he hadn't had then. Knowledge of what was to come. Knowledge of every step that would lead to Mount Tiansheng and 8 blades. Knowledge of every moment when he could have turned away, and hadn't. There will be no more softness, he said aloud, quietly, into the empty room, like a vow. Outside, the rooster crowed. The morning had begun. He met Yu Shui first. It was inevitable. In his past life he had met her right here, on this very day, on this very road. She was lying by the roadside, beaten nearly to death, young, 17 years old, with a useless spiritual root of the lowest grade and no prospects. The old Lu Yi had stopped without thinking, helped, healed, taken her along. The current Lu Yi knew what she would do 80 years from now. He knew how she would stand before him on the day of ascension with a sword in her hand. He knew what she would say to the world in her own defense. She would say he had demanded too much, that his standards were unachievable, that he had weighed her down with the burden of his expectations, that she had felt not good enough her whole life. A lie. He had never demanded the impossible from her. He demanded effort, only effort. But she wanted results without work, wanted power without a price. And when the power came, she decided she had achieved it herself. Lu Yi looked at her from the roadside, lying, groaning, helpless. There was not a drop of the warmth in his chest that had been there last time. He walked past. It was harder than he expected. In the body of a 17-year-old boy, the reflexes of his past life still lived. Stop, help, it is your duty. Reflexes of 80 years of kindness. He suppressed them and walked on. But 100 steps later he stopped. Not because he'd changed his mind, because he thought of something else. Without him Yu Shui would remain nobody, weak, unknown, without power or influence. She wouldn't become a threat, but the weak easily become tools in the hands of others. He turned back. Yu Shui raised a clouded gaze toward him through the pain. Help me. Lu Yi looked down at her. A plan was already forming in his mind. Not the one from last time. A different plan. Cold, precise. One in which Yu Shui would be his instrument. Useful, controlled, unable to cause harm. Can you stand? I can't. Then stay down. I'll do it myself. He lifted her, easily. The way you pick up a broken thing you intend to repair and put to use. Without warmth. Without promises. He simply did what needed to be done. Yu Shui didn't know the difference. Not yet. On the 4th day he came to her room and sat across from her. She looked at him with that expression he remembered, a mix of gratitude, caution, and hidden hope. He had seen that expression on the faces of all 8 at the beginning. You want to become strong? Yes. Why? She went quiet. Last time she answered honestly, and he was moved. Now he waited for her answer and thought that any answer would be incomplete. I don't want to be lying by the road again, she said at last. An honest answer. Incomplete, but honest. Good. I'll take you. But on my terms. No objections. No questions about why I do this or that. You do what I say. When I say it. Understood? In his past life he had never spoken that way. He explained, discussed, persuaded. He wanted his disciples to understand the meaning behind every action. Now he knew. Understanding leads to reinterpretation, and reinterpretation leads to 8 blades. 3 months later they arrived in the city of Balin. Lu Yi knew Chen Li was waiting there. He knew the day, the place, the circumstances. He had thought about it the whole way, and made the decision not to look for her. But on the 3rd day in Balin he was walking through the market square and saw a scene. 2 guards were dragging a young woman. She was pulling away, shouting about a false accusation. A crowd gathered around, watching, not interfering. Chen Li. Lu Yi stopped. A poisoned dagger. A slow-acting toxin. The day of ascension. But then he thought further. Chen Li had been the most intelligent of the 8. Her gift for artifact crafting was unique. The kind born once every few generations. A person like that under control, an invaluable resource. A person like that in enemy hands, a danger. Lu Yi stepped out of the crowd. A few words, the right name spoken, and the situation was resolved. His reputation was already working. The conversation was different from his past life. Without warmth, without promises, only facts. He knew of her gift. He could provide conditions for developing it. In exchange, work for him. A contract, not friendship. An instrument, not a disciple. Chen Li listened, and he could see that this offer made sense to her. Last time he would have offered warmth and care. Here, honesty and mutual benefit. Why did you help me? You don't know me. I know your gift. That's enough. 6 months passed. Shi Mei Lin, an expelled disciple from the White Crane sect, he helped her reclaim her reputation. Coldly, formally, without personal involvement, he took her on as a specialist in White Crane combat techniques. Feng Yuchen, the daughter of a poor healer, he took for her exceptional knowledge of poisons and antidotes. In his past life he had admired her kindness. In this one, he saw only professional value. Lo Xin, Mu Beihe, Tan Yu, each by the same principle. A resource, an instrument, not a person, an asset. Everything was going according to plan, but something was going wrong. He felt it one evening. All 4 were sitting around a campfire and simply talking, about nothing. About the road, about a funny incident at a tavern. Yu Shui was telling a story. Chen Li commented. Shi Mei Lin laughed. Lu Yi sat apart and watched. He felt something he didn't want to feel. Something resembling the warmth he had forbidden himself from the very beginning. Toward this scene as a whole. Toward these faces by the fire. He stood and walked into the darkness. Stood there, staring at the night sky. In his past life he had loved evenings like this around the campfire. He had loved listening to his disciples talk among themselves. He had felt something right in it. Now he told himself, this is weakness. This is what will kill you again one day. But the voice was quiet, And the further he went, the quieter it became. A year into the second life, Yu Shui came to him on her own. Late in the evening, while he sat over his scrolls, she knocked, which was unusual in itself. "Teacher, you don't love us, do you?" Lu Yi looked at her. "You treat us like instruments. Always. Never like people. I've seen other teachers. They're different. Why are you like this?" That question had not existed in his past life. He had been open enough that the question never arose. In this life, clearly, the distance was noticeable. "That's none of your business," he said. "Perhaps. But I want to understand. You help us. You train us. But you don't see us. We are not people to you. I see your usefulness. That's enough." She looked at him for a long time, then said quietly, "In a past life, you were different. I sometimes feel it, as if there's someone else inside you, someone who would want to." "Yu Shui, go to sleep." His voice was sharp. She left. Lu Yi sat motionless for a long time after. A past life. How could she know about a past life? She couldn't know. These were just words, random words, but they had landed precisely. The White Crane sect stood on a mountain slope. White buildings among pine trees, bridges over chasms, fog in the mornings. A beautiful place. Lu Yi knew it well. He had spent several months here in his past life. He found Shi Mei Lin quickly. She lived in a small hut at the base of the mountain, expelled, without access to resources, but not broken. In his past life her unbroken spirit had moved him most of all. Now he saw something different. Shi Mei Lin's unbroken nature was fed not by strength of spirit, but by resentment. She hadn't given up because she wanted to return and prove the sect had been wrong. All her practice was accumulated rage given the form of technique. Such a person is dangerous. Such a person, once given power, does not forgive, they take revenge. Lu Yi entered the hut without warning. Shi Mei Lin was meditating, opened her eyes, saw him, didn't change her expression. "Lu Yi, I've heard of you. What exactly?" "That you collect talent. That you pay fairly. That you don't ask unnecessary questions. What do you want?" "To prove I was framed. I can arrange that. In exchange, 3 years of work for me." 5. Lu Yi raised an eyebrow slightly. In his past life she hadn't bargained. She simply accepted with gratitude. Here, she bargained. 4. "And full access to my archive of combat techniques." Deal. They sealed the agreement with a spiritual mark, standard practice. A formality. But Lu Yi put something extra into the mark. Something Shi Mei Lin didn't notice. Very subtle, insignificant on its own. A small anchor. Just in case. In his past life he had never done such things. He considered it disrespectful to a disciple. Now he considered it insurance. He met Feng Yuchen at the river. In his past life she had been washing clothes on the bank when his group passed by. He had stopped. Just like that. He saw a woman with a basket of medicinal herbs. He spoke to her. He was touched. In this life he stopped too, but differently. He knew who she was. The daughter of a poor healer, raised among herbs and poisons. Knowledge of substances that kill slowly. Of how to make death look like illness. That knowledge was exactly what she had used on the day of ascension. Lu Yi stood on the riverbank and thought. The pragmatic answer was simple. Don't take her. But he thought further. Feng Yuchen had saved him 3 times in his past life. Not on the day of ascension, but before. 3 times she had pulled him back from the very edge of death. That didn't cancel the betrayal. But it was a truth he couldn't simply brush aside. He approached. Feng Yuchen raised her gaze, calm, attentive. She didn't fear him. She just looked. "You know poisons." "I do. And antidotes. And antidotes. I'm offering work, good pay, access to rare materials. In exchange, your knowledge." She looked at him, evaluating not just the offer, but him as well. "You're not like other employers." "No. Why did you choose me?" "I'm nobody. You know what I don't know." "That's enough." A long pause. "All right. But I won't do what I consider wrong." That condition is not up for discussion. 2 years into the second life, 6 of the 8 were already with him. From the outside it looked the same as in his past life. Lu Yi and his disciples, a group of cultivators traveling the continent. The world saw the same thing, but from the inside everything was different. Lu Yi managed them precisely, the way you manage a complex mechanism, every part in its place, every effort directed where it was needed. They grew fast. Faster than in his past life, because his softness before had allowed them to stop, to rest longer than necessary. Now the pace never slowed. Chen Li said once to the others, but he heard, "He's cold." but being with him is better than with anyone else. I don't know how to explain it, just better. Lu Yi memorized those words, not because they moved him, because they were data. Tan Yu was different. All 7 he had gathered before her had needed him, in different ways, for different reasons. Tan Yu needed nothing. The daughter of a small sect leader, not wealthy, but stable. In his past life he had met her at a tournament and been struck by her fighting style. He had approached her himself. She had become one of the closest people to him. That was exactly why her blow on the day of ascension had been the most painful. Not physically, morally. A person you hadn't saved, owed nothing to, had chosen out of genuine admiration, and who still betrayed you. Lu Yi had thought about this for a long time. What had driven Tan Yu? Ambition. Her ambition was of a particular kind. She did not want to be second anywhere, ever. Next to Lu Yi she was always second, and it was destroying her from the inside, quietly, for years. On the day of ascension she wasn't taking revenge. She was simply removing the one who stood above her. Knowing this, Lu Yi thought, take her or not. At the tournament he didn't approach her himself. Instead he created a situation in which she came to him. A small manipulation. And there stood Tan Yu before him, thinking it was her idea. You want to be first. She didn't flinch. Yes. First at what? At everything. With me. You will always be second. Always. Direct. Without softening. He wanted to see how she would react. Then why should I go with you? Because second next to me is worth more than first next to anyone else. You're smart. You understand that. Another long silence. You're honest. Most people would tell me what I want to hear. The 8th was Xiao Lan, the youngest, the most unlike the others. In his past life, the only one he had taken not because he saw talent, simply because she was completely alone on a winter roadside. 8 years old, unconscious. He had taken the child, raised her, trained her. She grew up, and drove a blade into his back. Lu Yi always paused at this story, because it fell outside the logic of all the other betrayals. The other 7 were adults who made conscious choices. Xiao Lan's choices had been shaped by him. Her values, her worldview, her understanding of relationships, all of it he had created himself. What had gone wrong? Maybe the problem was in what he hadn't done. He gave her power, but not the ability to choose. He raised her in his own image, but never asked if she wanted to be in his image. He had not seen her as a person. That thought was uncomfortable, because it meant, even in his kindness, he had not been so kind. Even his best intentions had contained blindness. Lu Yi found her on that same winter night, 8 years old, small, unconscious in the snow. He stood over her for a long time, then picked her up, not because it was part of the plan, because he couldn't not pick her up. But this time he made himself a promise. He would raise her differently, not in his own image. He would ask her questions. He would hear the answers. Maybe the story would repeat itself, but he would try. 3 years into the second life, all 8 were with him. By all external measures, Lu Yi's group was stronger than it had been in his past life at the same point. Faster, more coordinated, less vulnerable, but something was going wrong. Lu Yi felt it. The way you sense a weather change before the sky starts to darken. Something in the group dynamic was off, something that hadn't been there in his past life. In his past life they had been a team. A real team. They had trusted each other, helped each other, laughed together. That made them strong, not just individually, but collectively. In this life they were a group of well-managed individuals, each strong on her own. But between them, distance. Not conflict, not hostility, simply the absence of connection. He had created a culture in which trust was unnecessary. The solution he found was paradoxical. He needed to become slightly less cold. Not warm, cold, but slightly less so, to allow a little more, not friendship, closeness. The trial of the Iron Gorge came in the 5th year, a narrow passage between 2 mountains, a traditional place for ambushes. The enemy, an alliance of 3 small sects, numerical advantage of 3 to 1. The first 10 minutes went badly, gaps in coordination, moments when one waited for a signal while another was already acting. Duplication of effort where distribution was needed. And at some point Lu Yi did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He called out by name. Not a command, a name. Yu Shui, left flank. Shi Mei Lin, center. Feng Yuchen, rear. Addressing specific people he knew, not the functions they performed. Something changed immediately. Not tactically, something else. Something in the way they moved after that. A little smoother, a little more coordinated. As if a small click had put the parts of the mechanism into place. They made it through the gorge. After the battle, Tan Yu came to him and said without preamble, "You called us by our names for the first time. Not as a command. Differently. You noticed." Everyone noticed. He didn't reply. But something shifted in his chest. Feng Yuchen came to him with a question in the 4th year. She usually didn't ask unnecessary questions. He valued that. "Teacher, may I ask something personal?" "Depends on the question. Have you ever trusted anyone?" "Why are you asking?" "Because I've been watching you for 4 years and I haven't seen a single moment when you relaxed. Not one. It looks like someone who has been betrayed very deeply." "Yes," he finally said. "I trusted. It was a mistake." "All 8? He froze. "What? There are 8 of us. And sometimes I feel like you're with us as though with people you already know. Already studied. As if you know everything about us in advance. You're very observant. You've said that. I'm waiting for an explanation. I won't explain. But you're right. I have knowledge that doesn't fit my age. Is that acceptable as an answer?" "No. But I'll take it. For now." The 8th year. Xiao Lan was 15. She had grown up in this life, differently. Not the quiet shadow she had been in the last one. She asked questions, argued, sometimes made mistakes, and acknowledged the mistakes herself, without being prompted. "Teacher, I want to ask you something. Will you answer honestly?" "I'll try. You do all of this. Everything you do for us, because you need it, not because we need it, right?" "Why do you think that?" "Because you control everything too much. People who help because they want to help don't control like that, they just help. But you, it's like you're defending yourself, constantly, even when there's no danger." 15 years old. A child. But she saw what he himself didn't want to see. "You're smart. Too smart for your age. You raised me, so it's your own fault." He smirked, to his own surprise. In the 7th year something unexpected happened. Lu Yi had assigned Shen Li to organize the archive of artifact blueprints. She worked on it for several days. Then she came to him not with a report, but with a question. "There are blueprints here with no parallels in any sources I know. They're too precise for theoretical work. This is practical experience." "Whose?" Lu Yi looked at the blueprints. This was his experience. From his past life. This is practical experience. "Whose?" "Mine." "You are 24 years old. Experience like this takes decades of practice. I learn fast. No one learns that fast." "I won't explain," he said. "But you're right. I have knowledge that doesn't fit my age. Is that acceptable as an answer?" "No. But I'll take it. For now." "For now," was a warning. She would return to this question, and, which surprised even him, he was not displeased by that. The 10th year. Lu Yi stood before a choice that hadn't existed in his past life. They were not the same as they had been in his past life. Yu Shui had become harder, more independent, less in need of his approval. That reduced her dependence, but also reduced that accumulated resentment over his too high expectations. Chen Li, whom he had given a pragmatic contract instead of warmth, turned out to be more loyal than he had expected. Pragmatism worked both ways. She harbored no illusions, and felt no disappointment. Tan Yu, whom he had immediately told the truth about the hierarchy, accumulated no resentment. She knew her place. But that place suited her, because he treated her honestly. This was not the result he had planned. He had planned control. He got something else, something more complex. He had planned 8 manageable instruments that could not betray. He got 8 people who might choose not to betray. The difference was fundamental. Instruments don't betray, because they can't. People don't betray, because they choose not to. The first is more reliable. The second is more valuable. 20 years into the second life, Lu Yi stood once again on Mount Tiansheng. Not on the day of ascension. That was still far away. He simply stood and looked at the sky, thinking. A great deal had changed over 20 years. His disciples, the same 8 who had betrayed him in his past life, had become different. Not because he had deliberately changed them, because he himself had changed, and that was reflected in them. Yu Shui said to him once, already grown, already strong. "Teacher, I don't understand you, but I trust you. I don't know why, I just do." He didn't answer. He simply nodded. Chen Li had pieced together enough to ask directly. "You had another life. Something went wrong there, and now you're trying to do it differently." He didn't confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. Tan Yu had stopped fighting for first place. Not because she gave up, because she found a different criterion. To be the best version of herself. Not the best compared to him. Feng Yuchen said once, "You're afraid of us. Still, that's okay. We're sometimes afraid of you too. That's fair. Xiao Lan had grown into a person she had not been in her past life. Free. Her own. Not his reflection. Lu Yi looked at the sky above Mount Tiansheng. In his past life that sky had been violet on the day of ascension, and it had gone dark. In this life he didn't know what color it would be on that day, but he knew one thing. True strength is not what lets you ascend above everyone else. True strength is what lets you stand beside people without fearing them, and without making them fear you. This was a different goal than the one he had started his second life with. Better or worse, he didn't know. Just different. The wind above Mount Tiansheng was warm. The sky, a deep blue. Below, on the path, 8 figures were climbing. They were following him. For now, they were following.